What up? Welcome back to Rethink. Another week. We're here.
Another week.
You had another weekend off. How was that?
It was really good. I did a wedding for a buddy, and that was really beautiful. It was cold, but it was good. And then Robin and I and some of our best friends just hung out at the cabin yesterday, or Sunday, and then got home in time to watch Game of Thrones.
Yeah. It's over.
It's over.
I was sad, but also I thought it ended good. I know everybody on Twitter disagrees, but
yeah,
we just had this discussion. There's other shows that ended way worse.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not a comparison of the two, but it's like it wrapped up well.
Yeah.
I didn't want...
The favorite thing is that John got to see his wolf.
Yeah, that was the best part of the episode.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just full circle, you know? Actually, I love all the this is a tangent I can go on for a long time, but it's like season 8, episode 6 or whatever, ended the same way that season 1, episode 1 started and ended, which is...
You're a geek.
Just Twitter. I've been on Twitter. I'm too tired right now. I was on Twitter way too late last night.
But I'm also excited because the last 3 weeks I've gotten to take a breath, and this week we kick off our women's series, which has been a long time coming, and a lot of planning, a lot of praying, and a lot of nerves, and but it kicks off this week, and I've been saying in my talk this weekend that I have confidence in what I'm going to say. I feel like I'm walking into a field of landmines. And if I say something the wrong way, women with torches are going to storm the stage.
Yeah.
And going, see? And then my security, I have to shoot them, and then it gets awkward.
It gets awkward. Yeah, but you'll be safe.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Hi. Yeah.
Which actually...
I'm wearing running shoes just in case.
As you should. That's a good idea. Which leads us to our conversation for today that I think I've been talking to people in the lobby. They're like, hey, should you guys sit down and have like big planning meetings about what you guys are going to talk about? And I'm like... No, we sit down and go, what do you want to talk about?
Yeah.
And then we start.
Yeah.
And the past week has been crazy in the political world, and this is not a political podcast. And so we don't want to dive into the political stuff, but this is a men's podcast. Yeah. So as we look at what is going on in Alabama and other parts of the South, in New York with Georgia, Missouri, whatever. Yeah. And then New York has the complete opposite bill that they've put out. We wanted to talk about abortion. Maybe not wanted to, but should. Mm-hmm. And I think you and me actually differ on where thoughts go.
We want to talk about what people are talking about going, I don't know how to address that. And and again, I might have to rethink some things about maybe not my belief system, but how I'm articulating and how I'm actually expressing what I believe is true. Because a lot of us are saying one thing and then acting very different.
Yeah. For sure. And I was talking to Ben before this, and I was like, I think we're going to talk about the abortion ban in Alabama. And he's like, what? So there's people who probably don't know what that is.
Right.
But I've been listening to a lot of podcasts, and I listen both like far right and then far left, because then it's like, I think I'm more in the middle of things. So it's like, I want to hear what both sides are saying and then make up my own opinion on it.
And I get asked this a lot. It's like, I don't talk about it from stage. There was a point in my ministry where I talked about it. There were pro-life weekends and things like that. And I would talk about it a lot. And then I realized...
it's not helpful.
Well, it's usually not helpful. Years ago, back in the 80s, I was really involved in the whole Operation Rescue, and I didn't ever like scream at women at abortion clinics or things like that. Yeah. But I did go and have prayer outside them, and I was even arrested twice.
Yeah,
and hauled off for what is it, passive resistance or?
I don't know what that's it. I've never been arrested for that. Other things, but
twice. But then I got convicted about it, going, I can sit there and go, God loves you, and it's a baby, and I can do all that. I never once opened up my home going, and if your parents won't support you, you can come stay with us, or we have extra baby clothes. I was given a lot of advice at that point in my life, and it came from a good place, but I think it came out as just one more religious person yelling. Mm-hmm. And that's never helpful. And then I know that we have a lot of men and women. I've heard both men and women's stories who have been part of that abortion story. And I want to. It's that really fine line of going. I want to be really, really careful that we're not a place that throws stones. Mm-hmm. So I want to give a lot of grace. I don't want to let go of truth. And sometimes I feel like because I don't say anything. I don't teach against any. I'm trying not to teach against things. I'm just trying to teach for something. Yeah,
teach what Jesus taught.
Right, and then you get shot from both sides, and so probably that's what's going to happen today. Even
I think it will, and I think, especially as we look at it, we were talking earlier, and I was like, I think both sides are asking the wrong questions. And the reason what you were just saying is like, I used to give a lot of advice. I would say now when I sit in meetings with you, you don't give a lot of advice. You just keep asking questions. So as we look at that, both sides are asking questions or throwing advice, actually, and nobody's really asking questions of like, what should we actually be doing? I was thinking about it yesterday, and it's like, we talked about this a couple weeks ago when we talked about the New Zealand shooting, and it's like, this isn't a gun problem. I think same thing happens here is on a very simple surface level. This isn't an abortion problem. There's other things going on, and we've created a world where a lot of people look at abortion and go, it's my only way. It's the only thing that I have right now. So I think question-wise is what should we be asking? What should we be looking at here? What would it, with Jesus standing in the middle of it, what is he looking at as here's where we go from here?
The only thing that Jesus would look at is human life sacred.
Right.
All right. And if human life sacred, human life is to be preserved and defended and protected. All right. And so that's the only question. All right. So I was thinking about this too, so I'm watching Game of Thrones last night, and somebody throws out the idea of why don't we move towards democracy? And it was so like ridiculous because it's a fantasy, right? Yep. But they've always had kings and tyrants, and your son becomes king and their son becomes, and so that's how government was set up. And the world was run like that. And then somebody raised their hand and goes, why don't we vote and have a democracy? And it's like, yeah, I'll have my horse vote too. Yeah. Right. And so you just go through that. There was a time in this country's life where somebody raised their hand and said, hey, maybe black people aren't farm animals or property. Yeah. And half our country at least went,
I'm out.
This is the most ridiculous thing. I'd rather become a different country than go that way. And so, but somebody had to dig their heels in about succession and about how much is a person of a different skin color worth. And it ends up being written into our Constitution is that we're all
equal,
created equal. All right. But that wasn't done yet. And then somebody raised their hand and went, why don't we let women have a vote? And again, half the country went, that's ridiculous. Right. And so, but the only question, the question that had to be answered was, are people from African descent fully human beings? If the answer is yes, then everything has to be figured into that.
Yep.
Okay. Are women fully human beings?
Yep.
Yes. Okay. Then everything else, that's the lead domino. And so we have to say, is a baby inside of a mother's womb a full human being? If the answer is that, then all the dominoes have to come from that.
Right.
And all the excuses about, but what about this and what about this? What about, okay, so if we do away with slavery, our economy will tank and there'll be a war. I know.
But it's worth it.
Well, we have to do it because they're human beings.
Yep.
All right. And so there's the same thing with this. You could build a case and go, well, abortions are going to happen illegally. I know. You know what? And people are still going to be racist. But it's worth the fight. Right. Because there was a day in our country where slavery was normal and our economy was built upon it. And you could actually treat a person of African descent and you could call them any name and treat them any way you want. And now, if we were to say to our kids, like you can say, referencing it, you can say the N-word, but you cannot say that word.
Yep.
And even that would be more offensive than anything really I can think of that you would say. All right. But there was a day in our country where it was normal and good.
Right.
And so I think it's possible if we say, let's answer the question of, is it a baby or not? Okay, it is a human being. Okay, then what do we need to do to shore up? Because the answer is not abort them.
Right.
It's murder them. It's not the answer to racism. It's not the answer to the wars between faiths. Let's just wipe them off the earth. Because it's not convenient or because the world's not ready really to take care of them. Well, then let's get the world ready to take care of them. But we can't say, well, once the world's ready to take care of them, then what? Then we'll do away with an entire industry. Right? It's like, no, you can't wait for that. You have to say, is this a human life? Yes. Then protect it and preserve it. And anything different is rationalizing murder.
Correct. So great. So play this out then on both sides. So let's say we as a country, we as a society, we as Christians, whatever that is, say yes, that is human life. We need to protect it. Play that out, because from that point on, then it becomes inconvenient when that child needs taken care of. So what can we as Christians do? What can we as a country do then when we say, yes, that's human life, we're going to protect it at all costs? What do we start doing?
Well, I think if you go back to the Bible, the way to take care of people, even imperfect people that have made mistakes, whatever, is family first, faith second, and government third.
Yep.
Absolutely. Right? And so I think that family, which is really broken, at least in our culture. Mm-hmm. So you're saying, well, then families won't ever take care of them. Okay. Then the faith community. So we're trying to try an entire, ministry movement here at Flatirons where we're going, let's look at two really broken things happening, right? So we have a bunch of single moms out there, which in this country, if you're a single mom, there's a 90% chance that you're going to live in poverty all your life. All right. Mm-hmm. And so when you see that on your horizon, you either say, okay, I'm just going to be a poor mom and let the cycle continue, or I'm going to abort this baby because I don't want that to happen. Okay. Mm-hmm. So what if the church community came around and says, we'll partner with you, not to judge you or condemn you for, whatever, but to support this choice that for whatever reason, I'm now carrying a child, planned or unplanned, mm-hmm. and my future looks really bleak. Will you partner with me? And the church goes, yes, let's step up and do that.
Yeah.
All right. And then the government comes in as a third wave to say, okay, what can we do to not incentivize,
right,
but which is like the whole Planned Parenthood thing is basically a government provided program, mm-hmm. Which is just incentivizing. It's like incentivizing poverty. Mm-hmm. It's incentivizing going, don't worry about it.
Yep.
Just go down here and it's like it didn't happen. Mm-hmm. And that's really a minimization because I'm not minimizing it. But I think that what we have to do is we have to change a mindset going, when we all get on the page going, that baby is a human life and is sacred and is as important as any of the kids that are getting shot in a school.
Yep.
All right. This kid just got shot in a uterus. All right. And we're outraged about a Columbine type thing, but then we go, it can't really be helped on the other. What if we said, you know what?
We're going to stop both.
Well, no, or how about this? Let's just give up on both.
Yep, absolutely.
What if you took the going, it's a really, really crazy world and that's what's going to be. So you know what? Good luck. Hope your kid makes it home from school. Yeah. Nobody throws up their arms with a child when they're in second grade and somebody comes in and starts shooting up the school. Yeah. But we've accepted as normal, go into the womb and shoot it up. Mm-hmm. And the devastation in the definition of life is the same. All right. And I do believe that we protect what we value. Mm-hmm. And we value kids in school, and so we're all outraged, and we all have ideas about whatever, but the end goal is don't let kids die in school, all right? So what if we got equally outraged going, don't let babies die in the womb, all right? And then don't let them come into the world, and you mentioned Alabama, and I don't know anything about the politics of Alabama, but it's very impoverished, low education, low birth rate, or infant mortality rate, high infant mortality. There's a lot of problems in Alabama. Okay, but if you go, we value kids, then you have to, and this is what our country's not willing to do. Yeah, and the church isn't willing to do, and families aren't willing to do. Let's adjust and do something inconvenient and out of a way that's going to cost us to take care of those who are less fortunate. And then we justify it. We point a finger and go, "You're bad because you killed your baby," and we're better, but we never helped.
Yeah,
we never offered
or even
to help.
Tried to help.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, that's where I think we have to go, is we have to throw this inconvenience thing out the window, because it's like, again, we talked about it with the guns. It's like, you ban guns, somebody's going to try to find them. You ban abortions, somebody's going to find a way to get it done. What if we came alongside them and said, it doesn't have to be that way. We've got you. We've got your back. So that was playing it out of, say we look at this as a human life. Say our society comes back after all of this and goes, which the science is trending as more and more stuff is coming out, they're backing that back, where it's like even before heartbeat now they're looking at that. Except
our society has abandoned science when it's convenient.
Oh, for sure.
All right,
for sure.
So like the whole gender thing going, so Christians for a long time ignored science. So evolutionists were going, science doesn't agree. And all of a sudden we're going, science is irrelevant. Science is irrelevant because you have to live by faith. Yep. And now culture is going, science is irrelevant. And we're pointing to DNA molecules going, no, there's two genders biologically. And it's like, which one do you want?
Right.
See, God's not afraid of science and biology.
He created it.
We just spoke out of turn going, all right, well, we're not going to talk about that. So now I don't think that we're ever going to get to there's not going to be some medical society that comes out, because there'll be one that does the opposite.
Right.
There's all these medical societies that say gender, transgender, well, that is a disorder. But then there's a whole bunch of them that say, no, it's normal. You can take data and you can manipulate it. Well, you have to decide what is true, right? And so science can come along and say a baby's actually. I bet a day is coming. All right, because I just had a friend that had a baby 6 weeks, 20 weeks, something like that. Way early, and with technology, the baby is going to thrive.
Yeah.
Okay. So I think this, it's not impossible. The day is coming when you back that thing all the way up to going. You can take this little zygote, like this little fertilized cell, and somehow through technology, totally cultivate it up to where it could be born outside. Right. Science is coming. It will not address the bigger question, and that is, this whole thing about this is my body, okay? It's like, it is your body, right? But that inside there, that's his body, or her body. And so you can't have it both ways. And that's what we're really getting good at doing. And that's the issue that has to go. Science isn't going to prove this. This inner conviction about if that's a human life, it needs to be protected, and family and faith and our country have to come around that and support it.
Well, and I think with both arguments there, I think it also looks at like when women say, well, it's my body. It's like, you're right. And you have to take responsibility for that. On the same token, us men have to take responsibility for coming alongside and helping, right? So it comes down to a responsibility issue. So play that out. Say society comes back and goes, hey, that's not a human life, whatever. What do then we as the church, what do we then as people who disagree with that do? I think it plays it similarly into your answer, but what does that look like when there's this overwhelming, which we've had for a little bit, but also there's this back and forth, but like, what does it look like when people come back and they go, this is not a human life? How do we actually come in and love people during that?
I think we have to do what Jesus did. I think Jesus was surrounded by people every day that thought he was full of crap. He wasn't the Son of God. They nailed him to a cross and he looked down and said, forgive him. So I think that all we do is keep on pointing towards Jesus and trying our best to talk about what we know is true about God and what we know is true about life, and let the Holy Spirit do the rest. I think that we should get as politically involved as we possibly can. But again, our hope is not in government. Our hope is in God. And again, I have to believe this, Cole, is that intuitively down inside of every person, because we're creating the image and likeness of God, there's something that recognizes, right? And so let me just, I'm getting ready to do a series on women, and probably I've gotten literally hundreds of emails about what I ought to talk about, what I better not talk about, and how I better get a woman in here to talk about things that I cannot even address. Yeah. And that brings up a lot of energy.
Because there was a female Jesus that
So here's my point. Okay. If men are not allowed to speak into the abortion thing because it's a woman's body and we are not women, then ladies, you have no more important job than defending the life of babies. If we can't do it, then you better.
Yeah. Right?
You had better, because there's a unique role. I cannot give birth to a child, and a lot of women, most women, their bodies are created to do that. Now, it's an imperfect world, all right? So all the disclaimers that go with that. But if you are the sole gender that can give birth to a child, then you have to be the sole gender that is out there. If men are allowed to speak into that, which is it was unfair, because men need to speak into it compassionately and supportive of this unique gift and responsibility and pressure that's on a woman, right? But women need to be leading the charge, not for reproductive rights, but for the protection of the babies that they are uniquely gifted to give birth to. I really believe that, and if you're going to shut our mouths, then you're going to have to speak twice as hard.
Yeah.
And I do believe that if I'm up there saying, hey, I'm going to give you a man's perspective on what you women ought to do, that everybody should pack up their things and leave. and I even say this in my talk this weekend, at any time, if I say this is my opinion, I'm going to say it's my opinion. You can take it or throw it away. It doesn't matter. But the question is not, what is Jim trying to get me to do? It is, does this agree with what Jesus says is true? And so that goes back to, is that a human life? All right? Because, we say this all the time. If I've done funerals for babies,
mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
And I've done funerals for stillborn babies and miscarriages.
Mm-hmm.
And with all confidence, I can say they're with Jesus.
Yeah.
You've wrestled through this.
Yeah.
Right?
Twice.
Well, how can I say that unless they're a person?
Mm-hmm.
So you can't have it both ways.
Yeah.
You know, they'll be with Jesus. That means they are a person.
Mm-hmm.
All right? And so that would be the quality of going, there's a certain race in our country that commits most of the crime. Let's kill them until we get crime figured out.
Mm-hmm. Doesn't work.
It doesn't work, drug, there's addiction's out of control. We're not suggesting kill all the addicts until we get addiction figured out. It's let's take care of those and then go upstream and try to figure out
the source.
Right. And that's the hard part. In the panic of the moment, we have an entire industry that says we can we can promise you that this can just go away with no repercussions. And it's not true. Right? It comes from Satan. He's the father of lies. His number one thing is to destroy the image and likeness of God. He can't touch God, so he goes after the image and likeness. And all through the Bible, the number one, I'd say the top two even.
Yeah.
When they reject God, there was out of control sexual dysfunction and the killing of their children.
Mm-hmm.
Over and over and over again, because nothing is a big F you to God. Then I'm going to take my gender that's created in the image and likeness of God, and I'm going to do something else with it. And then in his image, you knew me in my mother's womb. Yep. You knit me together in my mother's womb in the likeness and image of God. You knew me. You knew every one of my days. And I'm going to take that and I'm going to destroy it. It's the biggest F you to God that Satan can come up with. He cannot kill God, but he's going to kill the image and likeness, right?
Yeah.
And we can all say it all gets better when Jesus comes back, but our responsibility right now is to agree with God and what he says is true and go and fight for those who can't fight for themselves. There's nothing more that Jesus did. He got between the woman who legally could have been aborted at 25 for having an affair, and he says, you have to go through me.
Yeah.
It's legal. Paul says there's things that are permissible, legal, not beneficial.
Yep.
And this would be one of those. Mm-hmm. And if it's a human life, then it's murder. Right? And there's no justification of murder. Thou shalt not murder. And you shall not take. And murder is the taking of innocent life, taking it upon yourself to be judge, jury, and executioner. I'm not saying kill, because there's times where death has to happen, but not for babies.
Mm-hmm. So I have two questions.
Yeah.
So we know that there's lots of women that listen to this podcast.
Yeah, sure.
Probably women that have had an abortion at some point.
So, yeah. And men that have paid for it.
For sure. How, right now, as they think through this, they might be following Jesus, they might not be, but there might be shame there.
Yeah, sure.
How do they look at that shame and not lump that shame on themselves?
Yeah. Well, first of all, let me say this. I have a lot of shame the way I've treated a lot of people who have done certain things.
Me too.
And I've had to go back and ask for forgiveness from them. For myself, being a self-righteous prick, it's like there's like a list of, growing up in the church, there's like 4 or 5 things don't ever do, and that's on the list. And so I'm so sorry for the way I've treated people who I've never participated in the abortion process, but I have my list of stuff.
Yeah.
All right, which is equally damning or whatever that is. I think that the first step towards healing, because every person, man or woman that I know that's gone through this, they carry such guilt and shame. And what kind of person am I that would, on and on we go, right? The first thing I think is that Jesus always says, let's rethink that. In light of what's now possible, you can't undo your past. You can trust God with your past, all right? But you have to go, if this is why Jesus came, not so that we can continue to sin, but because he knows you have sinned, you've all fallen short of that, and it doesn't have to condemn you. So from now on, that's all we have, right?
Yeah.
So that if you ask, first you have to acknowledge that what I did was sin.
Mm-hmm.
And you could rationalize it and go on. I was in a panic. I was young. I didn't know what else to do. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. But it still was that, We had some guys down at Lyman Saturday, and they run the whole CrossFit thing, right? And so a guy was talking to him, and they're just really, really great, fired up for Jesus. And then later in the week, he saw them on the news because the Lyman prison has the first full CrossFit program going. Like the country's just all watching them do this. Mm-hmm. And the guy that running it, there's these two great guys. One's in for murder, one's in for double murder. And you go, whoa. Now, there's consequences to that. There doesn't have to be condemnation.
Right.
All right? And so the reality is I have some sin in my life, and I did it, and I can't undo it, and there's things, all right? I am forgiven, and it doesn't have to define me, all right? So the first thing I would say is, first I have to acknowledge, David said it in Psalms, I acknowledge my sin. When I hit it, I waste it away inside, and boy, sorry.
It's good.
You ever waste away inside because you're trying to hide the shame and darkness, And then you go, God, I'm a mess, and I made a mistake, and I'm so sorry, and if I could undo it, I would undo it, but you can't undo it. So what are my options? Well, burn in hell, or would you forgive me? And his answer will be, yeah. Now, come on. You're forgiven and you're washed, and now we're going to start a healing process. I've always said this, I'm forgiven, I'm not healed. Right? And so my condemnation is gone. Now I've surrounded myself with some people, and I'm healing up from the sinful mistakes that I've made in my life and that I've inflicted on other people. And that's the same thing, is if you've gone through this process, is the first thing is just you have to have a conversation with God and get the condemnation and shame and guilt off your back. But that doesn't mean that you're fixed. It just means you're forgiven. And now you get with some other people who are understanding and go, I will walk through this healing process with you. And it might be a short walk, or it might be the rest of your life walk, right? But you have to trust the character of God, that he's good, and he'll take care of you, and he'll forgive you from now on. And then I would say the most healing process, the most healing thing that I've found in the areas of my own guilt and shame is to grab arms with somebody that's going through it or has gone through it, and they're struggling, and go, me too. Yeah. And say, let's walk together. No judgment, no condemnation, just together. And that's the church. And if we could start rethinking that, get off our high horse about our 5 sins. Have you had an abortion? Are you gay? Have you had divorce? Are you addicted? You blah, 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 blah. And just throw all that out and go, have you fallen short? Right?
Me too.
But then you have to come. So let's go back to your original question. Take all the, society is, and what if it was a rape? Or take all that away. And, and so here it would be. Is a woman a human being?
Yes.
Okay. So you can't justify anything you would do to her.
Right.
That hurts her. Okay.
Right.
Is a person of a different skin color than you and I? Are they fully human?
Yeah.
Then they have every civil right that you and I have.
Yep.
Okay. So is a baby in a womb a human being?
Yeah.
Okay. Then they have as much right as me. They have as much person and individual. And you don't get to murder me because I'm in your way, because it's inconvenient, or because I came into the world through a really horrible circumstance. I'm me. Mm-hmm. All right? I just don't have a voice yet.
Yeah.
Give me some time.
Yeah.
And eventually I'll vote.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Well, it plays into that whole thing. You talking about the woman who had the affair, and she gets thrown at Jesus' feet. We've all been that person thrown at Jesus' feet.
And we deserve the stones.
For sure. And then what does Jesus say after all the men leave that are ready to throw stones at her?
He says, and neither do I condemn you.
Yep.
Now,
get up
and don't do this anymore.
Yeah. There's no shame that he lumps on.
No. She's brought that with her.
Yep, absolutely. Then my last question.
So how do we differ?
I lean more into, we don't differ on most of it. We differ on, not even differ. I think we touched on it, where it's like, I think
yours is more of an order. If we could create a world where it's safe for babies to come into, that would eliminate the problem. But we can't wait till that happens.
Right. We have to start making actions now. Where I look at it as like, we have to start creating something where, right now, if you, I don't know this for a fact, but if you ask most women, like, hey, why'd you have it? Why was that? It's like, I was in the mental state to have it. There wasn't a safe place to bring them into. It wasn't the right time, blah, 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 whatever that plays into. We need to create a world where it's like, those excuses aren't there. It's like, no, there's people there to take care of this baby. There's people there to take care of you. Mm-hmm. When we look at Alabama, it's like the education system sucks. There's all this stuff that plays into. They're cutting a bunch of whatever. It's like, they're not creating a world where abortion can be banned. They're creating a world where the systemic problem of it is going to become unhealthy. more unhealthy than it already is, you know, as opposed to creating a world where it's like, there's no excuses for this. Like, we've got you. We've got you. We got your back. We're taking care of you.
Okay, so I would say that there's a high percentage of people of color in Alabama that are born into poverty.
Yep.
All right. Do you suggest that maybe we start euthanizing a certain amount, like China, saying, hey, we got to keep those numbers down because it's just going to make the poverty worse?
No. And I'm not saying it's making the abort. I'm not saying we ban it. Or no, I'm not saying that the ban is wrong. I'm saying we're looking at a surface level issue instead of looking at the systemic problem below it.
Absolutely. Yep. And most of it is a bunch of justification of, I don't want to think that this is real or true, because it would really, really, really inconvenient my life. Yeah,
the inconvenience thing playing into the actual personal responsibility of things is where the problem lies.
Right.
Nobody wants to take responsibility right now.
But we cannot wait until we create this world,
right,
where we have to. So here's what I would say.
Yeah.
If our hearts would turn towards going, we love babies before they're born.
Yep.
Then we will create the world that they can be born into.
For sure.
But the opposite won't happen.
For sure. Yeah, and I'm not saying we put it on pause until it's created. I'm saying nobody's taking steps to create it.
I don't know. I think
looking at Alabama at an isolated.
I know, but I think it has to start somewhere. That's why I love what Flat Earth is doing. It's like,
me too.
I don't know if I can eliminate single mom poverty, but I'll go down on that ship trying.
Hell yeah.
Right? I don't know if I can break the cycles of imprisonment and recidivism rates, but you know, that's not a bad hill to die on.
For sure. No, absolutely.
Right? Everybody that lost their lives in the civil rights movement, you look back and go, was it worth it? And yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
I'd do it again.
Absolutely.
I'd do it different.
Yeah.
Hopefully I'd do it better, more compassionately.
For sure. Absolutely. Yeah. That's great. Cool. I forget what my last question was. So, no, I do remember. So the people that are listening right now, we have 2 minutes too long. That's fine. People that are listening right now, we always talk about, from this point on. What do we, as we listen to this, have from this point on to do? What's our first step?
I think go back to what God says is true and what God is speaking in your own heart. Answer that question for yourself. If that is a baby, then what does that mean? Right? For me. And again, you cannot make anybody go do anything, but you can begin to champion a world, right? And you can have the conversations that aren't judgmental and go, and just, again, Jesus had all the answers, but asked more questions. Yeah. Right. He could have popped off advice. You ought to. You should. Okay. But he asked questions. He ask, seek, knock. Yeah. And don't bait and switch and offer him bread and then bite him with hit him with a stone. It's just treat people the way you want to be treated. And again, I really when I protested out of abortion clinics 30 some years ago, I meant a good thing. I don't know if it really accomplished a lot of good, and I'm really, really sorry for that. I'm pro-life, but I didn't offer life-giving help to any mom in crisis, and I really repent of that. And so I would take the judgment down and take the compassion up, and don't get into this. Please don't become one of the social media trolls. Yeah. I mean, I was reading through Instagram experts today, and it was like, what people are saying to each other is so mean, and then we all get lumped into that. And so this is not something to be discussed on social media. It's so personal and real, and it can only come through relationship. And so I would say is resign from social media conversations about abortion, about gender, about homosexuality, about gun control, because it's just people yelling at each other, and it's making it worse.
Yeah. For sure.
Except for our podcast.
For sure. Absolutely. No doubt. I think the first time you told the story of, I protested and all this stuff. It's like, but you ended that story with, and I never once asked, what can I do to help you right now?
Right.
That's a great question to start with.
Right.
Yeah. That's good. See you next week.
All right. Thanks.
Cool. Yeah.